Question: when you think about human existence and preservation, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it the things from the past that archaeologists have dug up that are now housed in museums? Or is it the many books we read to gain insight into the past? You probably answered correctly, but here's another question. What do all these things have in common? They are all forms of communication. We live in a world with over 7 billion people. Our planet is full of diversity and many things worth celebrating. How we have grown and continue to expand is very fascinating. It's kind of hard to imagine a point in time where our planet's landmass was pretty much joined at the hip. As our landscape began evolving, our natural instinct to explore the land kicked in. We started moving into different regions. Small tribes became communities. Communities turned into towns and cities, eventually turning into nations and countries. Through all this diversity, change and expansion, we managed to become great communicators. One of the biggest tools in our arsenal that we developed was language. We currently have over 7,000 languages spoken in our world today. As with everything, language is vulnerable to extinction. Around 40% of these languages are endangered as they have less than 1,000 speakers. Shared language creates commonalities within diversity. As it stands today, 23 languages are spoken by more than 1.5 of the world's populations. I'm communicating with you in one of them. What's the best way to think about languages? I think a good starting place is to think of language as a system we develop to help convey our thoughts, feelings, ideas, and emotions. Its dynamic nature means we can find new ways to use language, we can create new words, develop new ways of speaking, and find sustainable methods to bridge the gap between our dividing world. Language itself is multifaceted. It has a spoken and written nature, and within that, it also has an expressive form. We can use signs, gestures, and postures just as effectively to communicate exactly what we mean. Without trying to complicate things, it also has a fixed nature in the sense of how we preserve language in its written form. Preservation in this form is how we learn the past, thrive in the present, and shape our future. For a quick second, let's focus on language in its cultural context. Speaking and understanding a language brings communities and people together. It's a form of identity. By their language, you can tell which country someone is from. By their accent, you may even be able to guess which region in that country they were born or raised in. A stranger speaking a foreign language sparks curiosity. Knowing your mother tongue gives you a sense of pride and makes you feel like you are part of a social group. Think of it as an admission into the nation's culture. It's an insight into the expression of its people. It's like a passport to travel the world unrestricted. Just as we have physical checks and borders, language itself has barriers. Communication has been a cornerstone of thriving societies for countless years. In ancient times, invading countries would transform the language spoken in the land. If you were lucky, you were still able to practice your own cultural custom and speak the native tongue, but over time, a natural shift would happen where your language will be fused or blended to create a new dialect, and most people would become bilingual. Language also has a natural progression as people traveled and assimilated with one another through marriage and trade. We can see traces of this today as different cultures share the same word and root words. I'm not sure if you've noticed, I've kind of used language and communication interchangeably. Like America and Britain, they share a special relationship, but there are some distinctions. Language allows us to communicate in a variety of ways, verbally and non-verbally. We can communicate with words through speech or written text, signs and symbols, our bodies and facial expression. Language is a system in which communication thrives, whereas communication is how we process, exchange, and preserve these strings of data with a focus on delivering a message. What if we took these language barriers, knocked them down, and used them to build roads? This might be a great idea to help bridge the gap between our international knowledge of each other. As daunting as it first may be, learning a new language has many benefits. For example, it's a gateway to new experiences. It's a great way to meet new people. You don't have to be fluent in a language, but the ability to speak and understand just a little will somehow create a feeling of community, making us feel more at ease with the people we are engaged with. Not only does it open up our worlds, but it also opens up our mind. It increases our cultural awareness. Language can lead us down a healthy path of discovery. Just as we do with native cuisines, we should develop an appetite and thirst to learn a little. Understanding the language of the land brings us into the fold of the cultural mood. Any preconceptions or biases we once held could easily dissolve. It could allow us to become more tolerant, more open-minded, less judgmental. What we believe is good in one part of the world may not be great in another. Communicating with the locals in a native tongue is an honest way of interpreting how they want to be viewed and not how we believe they should be viewed. This is not medical advice by any means, but another good reason to learn an additional language is being bilingual can reduce the chances or at least slow down the worst effects of Alzheimer's and dementia. Studies suggest learning and understanding multiple languages plays a role in strengthening neuroplasticity, positively impacting the cognitive reserves. And who can forget about bragging rights? Being bilingual does wonders for our self-confidence. We come across as more approachable and in general, more open and interesting. People are just drawn to us. But there are times we might want to break from socializing. We may want to escape one world and jump into another world. The world around us might become chaotic. Sometimes we just want to be alone. This could be time to think, time to relax, or just even a distraction. Headphones allow us to have an intimate relationship with the content we choose to listen to. It instantly transports our brain from the chaotic, bustling world around us to a soundscape that we choose to create. Over the decades, the use of headphones has dramatically changed. From the inception back in the 1800s, used by switchboard operators, invented by Ezra Gilliland, the design was a single earpiece attached to a phone and a large microphone, which had to rest on the operator's shoulder. This piece of kit could weigh over 10 pounds. The headphones we are now more accustomed to are credited to Nathaniel Baldwin. Created in his kitchen, he just wanted something that could help him better hear the sermons at his local Mormon temple. What started as a professional aid has become an everyday accessory in our personal day-to-day lives. Literally, before I leave the house, I have to do a keys, wallet, and headphones check. It doesn't matter if I'm going down a road, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, I need my headphones. Headphones allow us to be considerate. Sharing has a time and place. A public library is definitely not an appropriate place to be blasting out our music. It offers privacy and prevents us from disturbing others around us. It allows us to become detached for a period of time. To gain our attention, people have to go out of their way to communicate with us. Inadvertently, wearing headphones, observing people swinging their arms as they walk carefree, bopping their heads to a beat only they can hear, can make you think twice before deciding to approach them. Well, I know I do. I find myself in certain situations where I need help with something, but for whatever reason, subconsciously, it's never my first inclination to ask somebody wearing headphones. I'm not saying I wouldn't ask them, but it's definitely not my first choice. Without saying anything, I feel like I'm pestering them. I'd rather find somebody not wearing headphones, or at least somebody wearing only one button. Is it just me, or can you relate? If so, what does this mean for us social beings? I read an interesting article in the New Yorker titled Headphones Everywhere by Amanda Petrush. She wrote, "The outside world, once a shared auditory environment, has been effectively fractured. We're now lilts about in our own bubbles of self-programmed sound." This stuck with me. Listening to music used to be a social activity that facilitated social bonding. Have headphones become a tool of choice to limit interaction within our social environments? When we wear headphones, are we saying, "Don't bother me, I'll rather be left alone," choosing privacy in a public space? It turns out this is not a modern day conundrum. The inventor of the first Sony Walkman also wrestled with this thought of people walking around with headphones, which could be seen as them being rude or antisocial. His solution was to include a second headphone jack so 2 people could listen to the music together. Unfortunately, it didn't spread like wildfire and was later removed as people wanted to listen to their music on the go as a solo leisure activity. The Sony CEO later stated, "I thought it would be considered rude for one person to be listening to his music in isolation." I've been discussing how language broadens our horizon and brings us closer together, and at the same time, how headphones can isolate us from one another. We live in a world where people and technology coexist. Is it feasible to bring visitors from the outside world into our own isolated bubbles? Wouldn't it be fantastic if we could take it a step further and invite individuals who speak a different language to us and create an international bubble where everyone can communicate in their own original language? It turns out we can, thanks to translation headphones. Imagine the unlimited possibilities. Speaking to people in their own language while traveling would surely enhance the whole experience. Conversations would flow, stories would be heard in full, eradicating any loss in translation issues. You will feel more at ease engaging with the culture and exploring the country. Without sounding like a commercial pitch, the market is flooded with these type of gadgets. and it's not difficult to find some extremely intriguing technology. The one that stands out in this arena are the Time Kettle's WT2 Edge. They can translate up to 40 languages in 93 different accents, and they claim to have a 95% accuracy rate. Close your eyes and imagine yourself at your dream destination. Hopefully the country you picked has a different native language to your own. Where would you like to go? A restaurant, the museum, a park? You need directions. You see someone that seems approachable. You begin to ask them for directions. It quickly becomes apparent you can't understand each other. Communication at this point is difficult. Play this scenario multiple times. The end result can only dampen your experience. How about this? Play the scenario once more. This time you're equipped with a WT2 Edge or a device similar. All you have to do is wear the earbuds. Open the app, set the correct language, speak slowly but naturally. The earbud will translate your speech through the phone, allowing the listener to hear and respond in their native tongue. Perfect. The conversation was fluent, you made a new friend, and now you're happily on your way. The idea of such products is interesting, bearing in mind the landscape of the world we live in today. I'm not saying translation headphones are going to solve all our social issues or instantly bring us closer together. I'm not even saying it will bring us closer together. What I do find fascinating is the potential it has to at least help bridge the gap between language, communication, and culture. If not on a global level, at least amongst small groups of multicultural people who see the benefit of having such a tool. Communication requires context and subtext. Where AI is yet to prevail are areas relating to human emotion, cultural references, nuances within vocal tones and inflections. Communication is not just what we say, but how we say things. Language is not just spoken, it's living, evolving, and it brings us together.